What's up, everybody? So the fight that people keep referencing and talking about in the community right now is the potential matchup between Ilia Topuria and Sean O'Malley. Now, before we break this thing down, right, I'm going to give you a preview, early prediction, and kind of play this thing out the different scenarios I see. It's important to note that none of this happens if Sean O'Malley does not get through Marlon Chito Vera at UFC 299. Now, I know a lot of people feel very confident about Sean O'Malley being able to get through Marlon Vera, but when we look at that matchup between Marlon and O'Malley, there's just some things that concern me considering it's a 5-round fight, right? We saw, Sean O'Malley in a 5-round fight for the first time against Aljamain Sterling. He was able to get the fight finished early, but if that doesn't happen, what happens when he lets Chito Vera kind of hang around, right? I mean, let's say hypothetically that all of that happens, right? Everything happens at the UFC once and everyone kind of gets what they're hoping for, and that is O'Malley beats Marlon Vera at UFC 299. Let's say that happens. We now have a position where Ilia Topuria not only has beaten Alexander Volkanovski, he knocked him out, and he has the featherweight strap. And Ilia Topuria now is in a position where he's one of the bigger names in the sport. He did all of the correct things where it was high risk, high reward. And if he did not beat Volk, man, if Volk went out there and finished him, I mean, we may not be hearing much about Ilia Topuria right now. And that's because he laid it all on the line. He kind of took the McGregor blueprint, which I had been saying here on my channel, talking a huge game. But when you do that, the pressure's on because now you got to back it up. So if there was ever the most pressure we're ever going to see on Ilia, it was in that fight against Volkanovski. Coming in there with that confidence to take out Volk, congratulations to him. He followed through with everything he said that he was going to do, knock him out within 2 rounds. He did that. But now we're at the point where not only did Ilia Topuria win, the UFC actually did something that many people that kind of slid under the radar a little bit, which was Ilia Topuria after his last fight, pretty sure his contract was up. And the UFC said, well, we need to take care of that immediately. So they go and they meet with Ilia Topuria ahead of this title fight, making sure that they had this man secured under contract and got him this fight with Alexander Volkanovski. And this was one of those situations where the UFC is like, we need to lock this man down. We need to make this happen because if he goes out there and says what he does, we're going to gamble a little bit here. If he does exactly what he did, it's going to pay off, and boy has it, because now they're talking about heading to Spain. And why are they talking about heading to Spain? Well, that has everything to do with Ilia Topuria, man. I mean, this guy's one of the bigger names in the sports, and whether you like it or not, man, the UFC is struggling for stars right now. They are struggling with superstars because they're having issues with Conor McGregor behind the scenes. Despite anything Dana White says, they're clearly having some issues there. I think a lot of that has to do with McGregor kind of wanting to be not a free agent, but wanting to call a lot more of the shots. He doesn't want to really fight out his contract. There's some different things going on there. Nathan Diaz has kind of stepped away. Masvidal's retired. Like, Khamzat's barely fighting because there's some issues with possibly him getting in and out of the country. Right now, the UFC is kind of struggling for stars. They're pushing Sean O'Malley, where it's like a lot of people are kind of rejecting that narrative of O'Malley being a star. Ilia is one of the guys now that the UFC is going to push, and he has the style, he has the look, he has the microphone skills that the UFC has been looking for, and they're going to push him. And a matchup in Spain with Sean O'Malley is absolutely a big fight, and that all depends on him getting through Marlon Vera. Let's say it happens. So now, not only do we get Sean O'Malley going for double champ status, we get Ilia Topuria, a huge matchup against another big name inside the sport that the UFC is looking to push. Now, this is high risk, low reward, or low risk, high reward for the UFC if they book this between O'Malley and Topuria, because we've seen the excuse that the UFC is able to have whenever they send a guy in the weight class below up a division to fight for the belt. It's like, well, if they win it, great. If not, oh well, they're still the champion in their division. So that's how the UFC is going to play it. Now, if Ilia Topuria goes out there and starts as Sean O'Malley, which I think there's a really good opportunity that happens, which I think is probably the most likely scenario, then it just rises Ilia. It makes Ilia's stock rise even more, because when we look at Ilia, man, he's one of the most well-rounded fighters that we have in terms of champions in the sport. He has really, really good takedown defense. He has really good grappling abilities. He has really good submissions. But we kind of forget about that because this man's boxing. He has some of the best boxing fundamentals, if not the best, inside the UFC, inside of all of MMA actually. And he's got really good power, he's got really good combinations, and he's absolutely confident. And when you mix all those things together, that's a really dangerous opponent. But when we look at Sean O'Malley, we're not just talking. I understand Sean O'Malley, people think he's cringe, he's not a superstar, all those things, throw that out the window. When we forget about all of that and we look at when Sean O'Malley is in the octagon and he is performing, it's hard to find a better striker in the sport outside of Sean O'Malley. This man has tremendous hands. He has really, really good timing. He might have the best timing in the entire sport in terms of his countering abilities, his pull counters, his setups, his feints, his twitchiness, his speed. I mean, is outstanding. The way he's able to switch stances, his front kicks. The man has literally, when you look at striking and you want to find a guy that's exciting, is flashy, has knockout power, has speed, has kicks, has everything, that's Sean O'Malley. And he is very entertaining in there. But the question that we would have coming into this matchup, can he keep Ilia off of him? Because we know Ilia is going to take the center. He's going to look to close you down. And if you are, locked down up against the fence, Ilia Topuria, man, is a real problem because that's where he's looking to get you, right? In the lead up to the Volkanovski matchup, I had said that Ilia Topuria, if he can close you down up against the fence and start to let his hands go, you are in a world of trouble. And we've seen Sean O'Malley in some of his fights. He's had some issues with the low kicks, right? We saw Marlon Vera use that opportunity to take away the movement of Sean O'Malley, and eventually he hit the nerve in the calf, and we saw how that fight ended, and that's the only loss we've seen from Sean O'Malley. So when we look at Ilia's game plan that he used against Volkanovski, where Volk relies heavily on that movement, is that something that Ilia is able to weaponize heading into a matchup with Sean O'Malley, which I would think that would be his game plan, right? Beat up the legs of Sean O'Malley, not allow him to move as well, because there's no doubt about it. Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, would have absolutely the speed advantage. He would have he has more weapons to go off of in terms of the striking. His feints are outstanding. His movement's really good. But the margin for mistakes would be very, 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 very small against Ilia, man, considering what we've seen him be able to do. Ilia's fought at lightweight before, right? People are tending to forget that. When he fought Jai Herbert earlier in his career, this guy was a lightweight coming down to 145, so you know he's got power. He's durable. We've seen him take some shots. I would favor Ilia in the matchup, but that's not to say that Sean O'Malley can't go in there and get it done. Now, the things that concern me is when what we've seen from Sean O'Malley. We see guys try to close him down and cut him off, and when they do close him off, they're able to land some shots. We saw Petr Yan land some good shots, and that's not taking anything away from Petr Yan. I think he's one of the best strikers in the sport, and definitely in the bantamweight division. But Petr Yan doesn't have the same type of power that Ilia Topuria possesses, right? I mean, I feel like we can all agree on that. And when you look at that, that has to factor into this matchup, because we would know that Sugar would show him that respect, being on the outside, moving, and this would all come down to keeping Ilia away and not getting closed down up against the fence. Because if Ilia is able to box O'Malley and make him fight in a phone booth and close him down up against the fence, it's going to be a really tough night for Sean O'Malley. But if O'Malley's able to stick and move, keep this thing on the feet, and keep him at range, Sean O'Malley has a pretty good shot, man, I feel like, at being able to put Ilia Topuria away, because Sean O'Malley's speed, I don't think he gets the credit he deserves sometimes, guys. Like, I know that people hate on Sean O'Malley. He's cringe, he's annoying, and all of those things. Like, I get it. I'm not arguing with you. And I don't think that he's the star that the UFC is kind of making it out to be. But when it comes down to the performance and it comes down to the skills, Sean O'Malley is fantastic. And I think when we look inside the featherweight division, I don't think that there's many guys. I mean, when you look at Movsar Evloev, you can look at a guy who might give him some issues on the ground, even though I still think Ilia Topuria is able to fend off the takedowns, keep it on the feet, and knock out Movsar Evloev. That's how I see that fight playing out. We look at a guy like Yair Rodriguez who could potentially possess some of those dangers to Ilia. And why would that be? He's a taller guy. He's got good speed. He has a diverse arsenal in terms of skills. Whereas Sean O'Malley, it's kind of the same thing. Now, he doesn't have exactly the same power, maybe because, yes, he is the smaller guy. But to say that Sean O'Malley wouldn't have a shot at finishing Ilia Topuria in a potential matchup, I don't think that's a fair assessment, guys. Now, if Ilia comes in, I do believe that he would maybe look to threaten the grappling, right? It's not to say that Ilia could, if this was just a striking affair, that Ilia can't get it done. He absolutely can. But I do think that we would see Ilia possibly look to mix in a little bit of the grappling because he would definitely have a strength advantage there. I would definitely give him the advantage in terms of the grappling in a matchup between him and O'Malley. I definitely think that's a fair assessment. But will he use that in a matchup against Sean O'Malley? I don't think so. I think Ilia is going to go in there with a point to prove. And I do believe, man, that Ilia would knock out Sean O'Malley. But again, to say that O'Malley can't keep him at range, feint and move, and use some of that twitchiness to set something up and counter Ilia Topuria and knock him out with something, I definitely think that that's a possible scenario if this matchup takes place. But I want to hear what you all think down in the comments. Who would you pick to win this matchup if it were to occur? When do you think it happens? If it does, like this video, comment your predictions below, subscribe to the channel, help your boy out. See you next time.